welcome everyone to Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. I am your host, Nina Joshi. I would like to formally bring on Pooja. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Pretty stoked, Nina. I've always followed the Women's Health Tech Wednesday series and super excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, we are so excited to have you and just really learn more about you and the work that you do. And so maybe with that, would love if we could kick things off by having you introduce yourself and just give a little bit of a background.
Sure. So I have always been a business development person. So I started my my career after completing my PhD in molecular biology in academic tech transfer. So for over a decade, I've been a facilitator of innovations, and worked with startups and innovators from some of the most disruptive labs in the country. So I've been at the intersection of engaging, building deep, authentic relationships with researchers, investors, some of the top incubators, accelerators in the industry, law firms that work with scientists from these cutting edge medical and research institutions. So that's been the sector I've been in, and for the most part I've been in the New York City area, and since I've joined SVB, I have I'm covering the entire nation, building up the startup banking practice at Silicon Valley Bank.
That's amazing. And so you started as a microbiologist, like academia trained. That's quite the journey. I love that. What kind of made you, what was the pivot or the catalyst that kind of transitioned you away from academia into the banking industry?
So that's a good question, right? I keep getting these questions, every now and then. So my career has been somewhat unconventional. I've always wanted to be, in the sciences, in the STEM field. I have a bachelor's in chemistry with a minor in food science, got my master's in biochemistry in India. And then, I just didn't want to stop there. I wanted to keep continuing my education. So applied to grad school and got accepted into the molecular and cellular biology program. So you can think of me as, always someone who's had a curious mind. And I don't know, for me, it's always been, curiosity drives the unconventional career path. In my case, so that's what happened. So when I was in grad school, I was primarily involved in two separate projects. My first major project was, studying into relationships between the P53 tumor suppressor gene and trying to understand its role and involvement in angiogenesis, which is the process of building of new blood vessels in breast cancer animal models. It was an amazing project, but for a variety of reasons, I couldn't finish that, and then I had to pivot and move on to another project, which was equally exciting, where I was the only molecular biologist in an inorganic chemistry lab that was characterizing, these platinum-based compounds that were being developed for treatment of human ovarian cancer. Wow. So, this was, the compounds were amazing. We won a lot of state level awards, and ultimately the technology that I worked on was exclusively licensed to a company called Phosphlatin Therapeutics. They've recently rebranded. They are now called Promontory Therapeutics. But the lead candidate is now in phase 2 clinical trials, which is super exciting, for treatments for thioma and thymic carcinomas. And these are two diseases that do not have any approved treatment. So it's so exciting to see, the work that you're doing is slowly inching forward towards the clinic. And, hopefully someday will really, really benefit patients in the field.
That's amazing. So you're changing lives on all of these different levels.
Yeah. So again, so it was so going back to the atypical or unconventional career. So I really wanted to be an academician. I wanted to, become a tenured professor. But I think once I saw the way our technology was exclusively licensed, I think I caught the business bug. So even though after graduating, when when I was looking for postdoc positions, I also kind of explored the business side of science. I got extremely curious about tech transfer because that was the process by which, my graduate work was licensed to the company. So I actually declined a postdoc position at Columbia University, and I chose to go a different route, and started as a fellow, a tech transfer fellow at Rutgers University. So and was the only fellow in the office at Rutgers. And this is over a decade ago, and that's how I started my journey.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, we love unconventional paths here. So I think that's amazing. And I think it really just speaks to, always like that curiosity oriented mindset and kind of knowing as you think about your options, what really interests you. And it seems like even though you had all these other options on the table, you kind of went with your passion, which is always, I think, a good compass. So that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's different, right? So when I was in grad school, I did not have a formal entrepreneurial education, right? So it was, you do your dissertation, you do your courses, you come out successfully on the other side, and you continue on your academic journey. So in that sense, the learning curve was pretty steep for me, but I've never been, deterred by challenge, right? Coming from India, when you're competing with like 200 other kids in the classroom, you kind of slowly develop, nerves of steel, and you learn to work through challenges, and you learn to keep pushing through, and in the end, ultimately, achieving what you set out for. So my journey started at Rutgers, and it's interesting, the Rutgers is the largest state university of New Jersey, right? It has, it receives the most federal dollars out of any institution in the state of New Jersey. It's a massive institution. The amount of research that happens at Rutgers is immense. On the other side of the Hudson is your New York City metro area. So I made sure that I spent every waking hour utilizing, the connections that I built, and learning and being a sponge. So I spent my days at Rutgers as a fellow learning everything about academic tech transfer. And my evenings were spent in New York City connecting with researchers, innovators, consultants, key industry leaders. And then there was another opportunity that I came across, which was becoming a founding associate of the first healthcare crowdfunding platform called MedStarter. And again, I'm dating myself. This is over a decade ago. And it was incredible. I mean, MedStarter was a platform that was, a go-to place for any product, service, or innovation that touched health, wellness, or the medical sector. And I was wearing many hats. I did the competitive landscape analysis. I was, serving as an advisor for the companies that wanted to come on the platform. I was doing evangelism for MedStarter by way of, attending events, doing presentations in and around New York City. So yes, it was, I kind of truly embraced the hustle culture of New York City, but I think it ultimately paid off.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. And I love just the grit and the determination to really just immerse yourself in all of these different disciplines. That's incredible. And it, of course, has led you to here to SVB. Would love if you could share a little bit more about the work that you do. So kind of what does a director of startup banking entail?
Sure. So I joined SVB after spending close to a decade in academic tech transfer. So this was, I wouldn't say it was a big switch, just because having been at 3R1 institutions, and there is a certain classification called the Carnegie classification, which ranks universities. These are 4-year institutions, in terms of the research activity that happens. So an R1 institution is an institution that is in the top 4% of the Carnegie classification. So I had the good fortune of working at 3 different R1 institutions, starting at Rutgers, spending a few years there. Then I became the lead business development person at Temple University. I was managing all the inventions coming out of Temple University's main campus, as well as the School of Dentistry at Temple. So I had an amazing time working with a really small, lean team around technologies that were not purely healthcare life sciences based, but I supported researchers and innovators from the Fox School of Business. I also worked with innovators from the Beasley School of Law at Temple University, innovators from the School of Public Health. So in that sense, it was such an amazing and enriching experience, working with these brilliant minds. And so since the team was so lean, we did everything. It was a typical cradle to grave tech transfer office. You take in inventions, you try to analyze and triage what's coming through the door. If it has commercial legs, then we file patents, and then we try to monetize the inventions that occur at the university level. But the university was very progressive, and I was very fortunate to be with a team that saw the value of providing not just resources but also entrepreneurship education to researchers and founders. And it was not all words, it was also translated into action. So while I was at Temple, the university launched a venture fund purely to support technologies that were coming out of Temple University. So I got to sit on the other side and be one of the fund managers who saw the inventions that should be backed and supported by the fund. So I did some of that work. And then on the other side, we had such amazing strategic partnerships with the greater Philly ecosystem that I was able to shepherd 3 technologies from Temple to get non-dilutive funds to the tune of $200,000 for those technologies. So the researchers, get a sense of what it is like to actually, take an idea from the bench and highlight that in front of an audience that are not researchers, but who are industry professionals and investors. So that was an amazing experience at Temple. And then I joined NYU after my stint at Temple, doing the same type of work, but with a much larger institution. NYU, the Langone Medical Center, is one of the top 10 medical institutes in the country. So working with, physicians, clinicians, researchers, and understanding the cutting edge science that they are doing was a phenomenal experience. So I brought all of that back with me when I joined SVB. So in that sense, I had a good understanding of, working hand in glove with early stage ideas. So at SVB, what makes us unique is we don't really need to know a founder after the inception of a startup. We can work as early as, when a PI is, a PI meaning a primary investigator from a research institution is working on an idea which has commercial potential. They have solid intellectual property protection. They can come to us and they can talk to me, they can talk to my team, and we can start supporting them from there on. So my role at SVB is to make sure that, I keep continuing the mission of SVB to support companies right from inception all the way through exit, be it an IPO or a sale. So
Right.
that has been my role since I joined the bank late last year.
That's amazing. And of course, we are all very familiar with SVB from the recent news. Just wanted to ask, I mean, based off of everything that kind of happened a few months ago, has that impacted what you're seeing kind of in this early startup lens, or is it still kind of business as usual when it comes to the overall ecosystem and kind of what you're seeing?
This is such an important question, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the audience here. It was really unfortunate what happened on March 10th, but we are extremely lucky to have the backing of First Citizens Bank. We remain open for business, and this year is all about continued growth and stability in the field. We have been serving clients in the same manner as we did prior to March 10th. Our balance sheet is much more stronger. SVB serves and continues to serve a very niche sector in the innovation ecosystem. We uniquely and very intentionally back and support founders in a handful of sectors, tech and life sciences being one of our main sectors that we focus on. And First Citizens has been one of the foremost financial institutions in the country with that has been around for 125 years. So with First Citizens stability and SVB's expertise in working with founders in niche sectors, we are kind of coming together and bringing strengths from both sides of both financial institutions. So we are stronger, and yes, we are supporting the ecosystem the way we did earlier.
That's amazing. That's so great to hear. And I think on that note, would love if, I think now this is just me picking your brain about banking in general when it comes to the innovation startup landscape. For you, since I know you've worked with a lot of, pre-seed, I think revenue, anything founders, when should they start to be thinking about their banking needs or what that kind of process looks like? Is it when they start raising? Is it before they start raising? And what are some of the considerations that they should be thinking about when it comes to choosing how and where to bank?
Yeah, brilliant question. So we have a dedicated team of experts within the bank, not just at the startup banking stage, but across all the different teams that are in the bank working with companies of all stages. Me and my team within the startup banking sector, we sit at the top of the funnel. We are the ones who are actually seeing what's flowing through academic research labs, what's coming down the pipe through incubators and accelerators that are spread across the nation. We love to engage in a dialogue with researchers when they're just about to embark on their entrepreneurial journey. We want to make sure that they have the right information and the right financial do's and don'ts in their mind before they embark on their journey. The first thing that they have on top of mind is intellectual property, and how do I make sure that I build a moat around my IP. But alongside that, you have to make sure that you line up partners who are not just service providers, but who go that extra step, that extra mile to provide you that value add. And that's where you have to be very strategic in selecting who you work with. Many a times we come across founders who've started their company, who have applied for non-dilutive funds through federal agencies, NIH, NSF, and they receive the letter and the acknowledgement that they're going to be awarded a fund, and then they are scrambling to find a place to park those funds. Or companies who are raising a seed round or a pre-seed round through friends and family, the entrepreneurs are not thinking about where should I bank,
Mm.
where will I get the most mileage out of, and SVB and my team, our role is two-pronged. We not only provide our founders with premium banking products and services at no cost, but on the other side, we work very closely with them to help them fundraise and to help them
Wow.
make those connections in the ecosystem, uh, ultimately to help them reach the next value inflection point, which from our perspective, my team's perspective, is raising a successful Series A round.
Mhm.
At that point in time, we graduate or move that company and hand them off to another team that is more savvy, and they are better financial engineers to work with a company that has different financial needs now. They're a growth stage company. So in that sense, we on one aspect, we are making sure that we get the most out of the funds that the companies deposit, and they get the most mileage out of it. But on the other side, we provide that extra value add that they would never have thought of, and that is how we've built trust with founders as well as investors in the last 40 years.
That's amazing. It's incredible that it's almost like an advisory arm as well with, I mean, leveraging your immense expertise and those on your team. Have so many questions for you. Really, really curious. I mean, you have really an eye on the innovation pipeline, not only in just the work that you've done with your academic kind of background, but also, really seeing the pipeline with the work that you do for SVB. Are there any kind of life science trends or kind of things that you're seeing, new technologies or applications that you are particularly excited about?
So I love that question, but I think we'll have to dedicate another a separate segment for that. However, I want to acknowledge and appreciate that the audience that we have today most likely either are entrepreneurs or are looking to embark on their entrepreneurial journey, and may or may not have a technical background. But the one thing that is on top of everybody's mind these days who are associated with the innovation ecosystem is what's the fundraising market like? With the
Yes.
current macroeconomic headwinds, am I going to be able to raise, successfully in the next 6 to 12 months? And so pivoting from, what's exciting in terms of technology, I want to share some excitement on the investment landscape. And so if I have to share some data based on investments that were made in Q1 of 2023, it has surpassed. So the investments have surpassed Q1 of 2021, which is very
Really?
promising. Yes.
Wow.
So and I have to share that the numbers that I'm sharing is purely for the healthcare life sciences company. I'm not speaking about the tech sector. And by healthcare life sciences, I mean to say all the various verticals within healthcare and life sciences, encompassing therapeutics, biologics, DX tools, devices, health tech, med tech. So that is one exciting trend that we are seeing. The other thing is, if we have to compare apples to oranges in terms of investments going into tech in the Q1 of 2023 versus in life sciences, the investments in healthcare has surpassed the investment in tech for Q1 of 2023. So in that sense, there is enough activity that's happening. And I keep telling my our portfolio companies is don't feel dejected because there is money to be deployed. However, the deployment has become more disciplined in the last year and a half. So if you truly believe in the science and you have a stellar team with a diversity in expertise, there's funds to be invested.
That is amazing. And that is, you answered my question. That is exactly a trend that you're seeing. So I think that really is incredible. And I was also going to ask you, it's a great segue to my next question, which is, when you think about the founders that you've seen, what are kind of the ingredients that kind of make like a very strong foundation? And I know just from your answer that you talked about a good founding team with diverse skill set, a product or an IP that you believe in. Is there anything else that's, a good ingredient to add when it comes to building that strong foundation as a early stage company?
So again, I by no stretch of imagination, I consider myself as an expert or a pundit or a guru in the space. Absolutely not. I try to keep myself humble and grounded, but based on what I've seen in the market and having worked with inventors, entrepreneurs, reviewing their pitch decks, seeing them pitch, and seeing who are successful versus who are not successful at the moment. Diversity in the team is so critical, and by that I don't mean diversity in race, ethnicity, gender. I also mean diversity in expertise. I'll give you an example. Mammoth Biosciences is a company which is based around the CRISPR technology. Jennifer Doudna, who's a Nobel laureate, she is one of the co-founders of Mammoth. So, this is a great story that I like to tell to a lot of founders. Is the CEO of the company understood that there were limitations to his skills and expertise that he could bring to the table, and he was not opposed to diluting his share to bring on other experts on the team. And I think this is such a great story because this is what founders are scared of, and the founding team is, why do I need to dilute myself at this early stage? But when you reach a point where you've gained enough traction, enough momentum, but there's some stagnation that is being experienced, and your investors and consultants, key opinion leaders are telling you to diversify. I think that is something that should be kept in mind right from the beginning. The other thing that I tell my founders, and I see this more with healthcare life sciences founders as opposed to tech founders, is healthcare life sciences founders are extremely passionate about their science, and they love to describe the mechanism of action and how the technology actually works on a cellular level, in the organism level, at the organism level. But they forget to understand that when they're pitching and when they're trying to fundraise, the audience is an investor, not a consumer. So you have to make sure that you truly understand and you value the perspective of the audience that is listening to you pitch. And once you have that mindset, you quickly realize that you need to change the way you pitch, and you need to change your slides, and that the audience is an investor who is looking to understand why he or she should invest, and what's the return on investment for the technology.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I also just realized that we're over. We're past 10. Like we could just keep talking and talking. Thank you so much, Pooja. We definitely need to have a part 2. I feel like just your experience, your perspective. I mean, it's been such a rich discussion. We'll definitely need to bring you back.
Oh, would love to. And again, I really want to thank you for giving me this incredible opportunity. I love this platform, and big kudos to you, HITLAB, and all the sponsors and supporters of Women's Health Tech Wednesdays.